This story took place on an island on a dark evening. Charles cried out to Brunette in the woods. She didn't know where he might be. She really hoped he was hiding from those freaks. Only in this village on this island, the plague spread in a day. Many residents fell asleep forever because of the infection. Meanwhile, Charles was wandering secretly through the dark woods at night. This guy noticed some people in the woods, and next to them were infected. The plague had clearly struck several men. They looked very intimidating. Apparently in the woods they were going to sleep for eternity. After a while the men left the soul. One of the men turned his head and noticed something suspicious in the bushes. He asked his partners what it was, but they reassured him that there was no one in the bushes and he was just imagining things. The man looked thoughtfully into the bushes. He did notice Charles's silhouette, and he stared at the tree behind which the boy was. "Hi, come here, I found you, boy." Charles was frightened and ran sharply into the woods. Everyone shouted at him to stop, but he wouldn't stop. The boy accelerated so fast that he did not notice the edge of the forest, which was on top of the cliff, and quickly flew down. That evening the ugly mistress was smoking a cigar. She was stroking her belly, and her smurd said, "Mistress, this is our child." "Shut up and consider that nothing happened," the woman shouted loudly. "I told you not to even mention it. This secret must die with us. What do you think would happen if someone found out? At best, I would lose my status, wouldn't you? You're going to bleed. You think it's a small thing, get out of here." Hallam got angry and called the lady a worthless mummy and left. One dark night, the terrible mistress gave birth to a child. It didn't take long for her to decide to get rid of it. She put it in a basket and sent it down the river. Mistress decided she had to do it. The infected continued to search the woods for the boy. The night lasted like an eternity. "Hey, has anyone seen the kid at all? We need to search the whole forest and a lot of places. We have to find him today. We have to hand him over to the mistress." One of the infected guys found his leg deteriorating. His partner noticed the suspicion and asked, "Hey, Louis, did something happen to you?" "That's okay, it's just a little leg, no big deal." Louis walked over to his partner and leaned on him and said, "I'll lean on you, if you don't mind. Listen, I'm worried about you. Let me take you to the village." There was an infected man on a chain in the dark, dreadful cave. He was experiencing the last stage of the disease. The girl found the boy next to the boy. She was furious about the whole situation. "I don't believe it, just shut up," she was talking to the infected man. The girl saw this guy as someone she knew, and she said, "I'm sorry, Madam fears a scandal will ensue. That's why she's trying to set us up. She wants to eradicate our kind, so that no one will know her secret, so that she won't simply lose power." "Her madness knows no bounds," answered the sick man. "She's gone mad." The guys who were looking for the boy in the woods saw a girl with a child run into the pond. As they got closer, they discovered that it was the cave of the mistress, where she performed her rituals. Staring at the cave, they thought, "What should we do now? We are forbidden to go in there. Then we must tell everyone where they have hidden. Stay on guard while I go and give the mistress information." The mistress was furious. She was having fun with the infected. "Do you feel oppression? This is the result of your disobedience." The dark, scary, sick girl on the floor had a hard time saying a few words. "I realize that everything that's happening is your doing. It's all your fault." The witch. After these words, the mistress furiously struck the sick girl in the face. "If you had given me this child then, none of this would have happened." At this point, the guys from the Lem had already come running and reported that they had seen a girl and a boy running into the mistress's quarters. The mistress was very much surprised. They all went to the mountain. It was a deep, dark night, and the girl and boy were still in the same cave. They had already heard noises outside. "It must be her," the sick man answered. The boy was very frightened, but the girl was furious. "Don't think bad thoughts. I don't want anything to happen to you. The girl wondered if there was another way out of that cave, but there was only one way in and out of the cave. At one moment the mistress was standing on the threshold of the cave. Sorry to interrupt your father-son reunion. Mistress started laughing loudly and fearfully, and the boy was scared. She laughed and came closer and closer. The infected man was sure she was coming alone. The search for the boy went on in the woods. The boy was hiding in the bushes and was very frightened. At one point he saw her. Out of fright he wanted to close his mouth, but the girl put her hand over his mouth. Evil masked men were on guard. They couldn't figure out where he was missing. They were looking through every tree and every bush. At that moment, the girl kept her hand over the boy's mouth so that he would calm down and be quiet as soon as possible. When the masked men left, she took the boy by the hand and ran for the exit. The girl and the boy ran to the cave. It was dark and very deep. But there was no other safe place. The girl slapped the boy's face in anger and said, "How dare you run away? It's very dangerous outside." She asked the boy to be home. But he ignored her. After this situation, the boy just cried. The girl came to her senses and was very upset. She apologized for her rudeness and explained that she was very worried about the boy. A long time ago, 10 years ago, near the mountains by the river, people were working by the water. The girl was working with her mother when suddenly she noticed something floating on the water. She decided to check, but very carefully. Inside what came was a small child. He was sleeping sweetly, and there was a note next to him. The girl took the note in her hands and read the phrase, "Please take care of this child. The god of the sea will appreciate your kindness." Apparently someone rejected this baby. The poor baby, thought the girl. Her mother wondered if the child was definitely there. The woman was worried about her daughter and her new find. She offered to give the child to His Majesty. But the girl firmly answered no. The child survived the trip on the march and came to her, so it must be her destiny, and she decided to stay with him. Look how cute. The girl decided to show the baby to his mother. The girl lived in a small house, not very rich, but she took great care of the baby. She played with the baby, fed him, and watched him sleep. But her mother was not very happy about her daughter's new find. She explained to the girl that if he stayed, no one would marry the girl. And she as a mother is already old, and it will be very difficult for the girl to be alone. But for the girl, her mother's words meant nothing. She continued to play with the child. The mother sighed heavily. This evening they had guests in their home. The door was opened by the mother, who was surprised to see who was waiting for her on the doorstep. It was a crowd of men who said that Her Majesty demanded to see a woman. The mistress was also among them. The woman asked her what all this meant. The mistress angrily ordered that she knew everything and asked me to give the child to her. Upon hearing this, the girl with the child went into a rage. She decided it was her child and why she should give it to her mistress. The mistress replied that the child did not belong on this island. The mistress's servants approached the girl to take the child. The girl's mother was worried and told her to give them the child. She asked the girl to follow her mistress's demands, but the girl continued to stand her ground and rudely said no. The cowgirls explained the situation, that the child was cursed. He will answer to luck. Because of him her family will be in trouble. The best option for a girl is to give her child to a mistress. The girl didn't want to listen to anyone. She told everyone to shut their mouths and that they were just all superstitious people. Let them go away from her house. The girl went into the back of the house with her baby. The mistress was furious. "A bad daughter you have," she said to her mother. "You have to teach her to obey." The girl's mother was upset by the situation and explained that the girl's reaction was due to her age. To which the scary lady laughed and said, "Someday this child will cause a catastrophe. But your family cannot foresee it, and you are just sacrificing her." In her kingdom, the mistress took it upon herself to brew her own potion. She stirred the thick slurry with a huge spoon, muttering in her ear that the child should not live on this island. One of the serfs came up to the mistress and asked if it was true that the child was cursed. She looked up at the boy and replied that everyone was enjoying their peaceful lives but had forgotten about the curses. She explained that the longer this child was here, the more the land would suffer. She poured the potion into a plate and told the boy to drink it. Drink and go, be careful not to be seen. 10 years have passed since then. The boy grew up hated by the whole village and only his mother loved him. In the cave the boy kept crying, but his mother tried to comfort him by hugging him. She thought they were the only demons, and the boy had nothing to do with them. The boy answered his mother through tears, but Uncle John was destroyed 5 days ago. They said I was the one who destroyed him. The search for the boy and the girl continued. The peasants wandered on, looking everywhere they could. One of them said, I've been all over the place, it's like he's evaporated. The servant stood discussing what might have happened to the boy. At this point Her Majesty had already come to them. Your Majesty, John's mother said he was missing, and we looked all over, but we couldn't find him. Your Majesty, you are all-powerful, please help us. The Smurds asked. The mistress replied without a moment's hesitation that John was asleep forever. The serfs were shocked by the news. They couldn't believe it. They thought the curse was starting to work and this was just the beginning. Mistress confirmed it. The cursed child did it. Next time he will destroy more people. The slaves were frightened. They decided what the curse meant was true. The mistress smiled and retreated into the darkness. One dark evening there was a very violent thunderstorm in terrible weather. The girl and her child were at home. The boy was looking out the window at the terrible weather. He was afraid of thunder. His mother told him, it's just thunder, soon the rain will pass. Go back to your room and keep warm. While the mother was dressing the child warmer, they discovered a noise outside their house. Looked out the window, they found a herd of men standing near the window, a herd of Smurds and a mistress between them. The girl saw this and ordered the boy quickly to return to the room and hide. She heard the crowd shouting that they wanted to destroy her son. The girl thought the crowd were lunatics, a herd of puppets. The crowd screamed, you can't keep him from us anymore. Give it to us. He must be destroyed, we must put an end to this. The girl's mother was in the midst of this crowd. She got down on her knees upset and said, my poor son, why does life not love us so, my innocent son, my little boy? The boy was frightened and hidden in the room. Everyone shouted to the girl, open the door, open the door. At one point the girl got tired of it and opened the door. She yelled, don't say that about Adam. He didn't do anything. Her mistress replied that he had summoned a demon, and the demon was helping him destroy people. She shouted at full volume that Adam must be destroyed. Everyone was very angry on that dark, scary night. The girl's mother was still on her knees crying for her grandson. The girl looked at everyone with a hard look in her eyes and said nothing. She went out to comfort her mother. Her mother hugged her and said, this is some kind of mistake. After all these years while he was growing up, nothing like this had happened. The crowd began to give in to doubts, and the truth was that everything was normal after all. Maybe John's destruction was just an accident. Fools, do we have to wait until the devil lays his hand on your family for you to finally understand? Madam said, the years that have passed were but a brief lull before the storm. One of the crowd said maybe someone should take care of Jasmine while we take Adam. There were cries that this was the beginning of the end. Give us Adam, mistress wouldn't lie to us, shouted the crowd. The boy was already a little suspicious of trouble, and through a crack he could see what was going on outside. He could hear the crowd shouting that they wanted to take him away. The girl may have turned around and gone into the house. Someone in the crowd said, see, she's not as dumb as we thought after all. Sometimes you just have to weigh the pros and cons. At one point the girl jumped out of the house with a huge knife and, well, get out of here, yes, old woman, and you too, or your followers will pick you up piece by piece. Her mother tried to stop her daughter by explaining to her that she shouldn't be so rude to her mistress. It didn't take long for the mistress to say that the girl was under the control of the child. The crowd thought the girl was bluffing and that they should not be afraid. But the girl was determined. She took her knife and stuck it in the house. She shouted who was bluffing here, and the crowd looked at her frightened. One of the crowd shouted, don't be reckless, think again about the consequences. The mistress also added her word that stopped being stubborn to the girl. Though unknowingly so far, Adam continues to force the demons to do evil. You and your mother are also in danger. The girl decided to answer her mistress that if the strange things continue to happen and it turns out that Adam has anything to do with them, then she herself will take the initiative and lead him to her. Madam decided to agree. Well, all right. But God knows, if anything like that happens again, you're on your own. That's the last warning you'll get. She laughed and warned them that next time she wouldn't be so hard on them. She said that next time she would instantly destroy Adam and that would be it. The boy heard this and was very frightened. His heart was pounding hard. The crowd, along with the mistress, left. It continued to rain and the weather was very dreadful and gloomy. One day the mistress called her serf to her and he agreed that he would do as she commanded. The evil and fearful mistress kept on brewing her potion. This potion was most likely some kind of secret and poisoned by demon magic. Mistress poured her potion into a plate and set out on her journey. On a dark, dreadful night, on a rainy night, she went into her dark, long, dreadful cave. That night one of the villagers went to the river to get a net of fish, and he was also wondering where John was missing because he was tired of looking for him. While taking the net from the water, the man heard some very strange noises. They really scared him. They were getting louder and louder, so the man decided to ask who was there. He thought he was just imagining things and was going home. But as the man gathered his net, he heard an even louder sound and looked up. On that dark, rainy night by the river, he saw a very strange silhouette on a ship in the distance. It was the silhouette of a man. He thought it was the same John, so he asked, "John, is that you?" The man never heard an answer, but the silhouette was already right in front of him. The man thought it was the same John, so he asked him, rejoicing, "John, are you alive after all?" The man was very relieved. He thought the man had disappeared. "We should tell everyone the good news right away." The man shouted excitedly and reached out his hand to John. In an instant, the man was pulled right into the water. A very strong, strange force drowned him in the water near a terrible black silhouette that had an infected face. This terrible infected monster was choking the man underwater. But by some incredible power or miracle, the man was able to survive and escape from the hands of the monster. He crawled out on dry land and said that he was not to blame for John's death and that he should not pursue him, much less seek revenge. Frightened, the man began to flee into the village. The terrible monster out of the water screamed that there was nowhere to run. Everyone was doomed. The man ran as fast as he could home, screaming and frightened. He ran into the village and began shouting that John was alive and threatening him. He raised a ruckus in the village. The villagers woke up to the noise and sleepily asked what happened and why the man was screaming. The man panicked that he had seen John and that he had now turned into the living dead. The villagers did not understand anything, for they had only just woken up, and it was the middle of the night. The man summoned everyone to go with him to the river, and he would prove that John was a living dead man. That night, a crowd of villagers went to the very spot where John attacked the man. When they arrived at the place, there was a man's fishing net lying on the bridge by the water. They also saw John's own boat, but they didn't know where he was. They looked over the boat and decided that they should report everything to the mistress. The girl's mother was also among them, and she was crying, knowing that there would be trouble. The crowd of locals decided that the mistress was right. John had indeed been destroyed, and the cursed child was to blame. Without thinking, they decided to go out and catch the culprit. The girl's mother was nearby, and she heard and understood everything. She ran to her daughter's house to report the trouble. The girl was in a deep sleep at home, and her mother came and woke the girl up. When she awoke, she said she and Adam had to run. "Hurry up and get up." The girl could not understand anything after the dream and asked her mother to speak more slowly. The mother explained to the girl that the villagers believed that John had come back as a living dead man, and that they were on their way to get Adam, and she didn't want to lose her grandson. She ordered the girl to wake Adam quickly and just run out of the village. At this point, the villagers were already knocking on the door of the girl's house and shouting that this must end. that the girl must give them Adam. The mother and daughter threw a frightened look toward the door where the villagers were loudly knocking. The girl and her son left the house through the back exit. The child asked if his grandmother would go with them, but the grandmother replied that they had to run as far away as possible. They must not be caught by the madmen. The angry residents kicked down the doors to the house and got inside. The grandmother sat on the floor, frightened, asking what the mob wanted. Very rudely, they ordered her to tell them where Jasmine had gone and where she had taken the baby. The grandmother reported that they were all crazy, that Adam was not cursed, and asked them to leave the child alone. One of the crowd said that he would take the grandmother to the mistress and she would decide what to do with her, while the rest of the villagers let them go in search of the girl and the child. At this point, the girl and the boy continued to walk as far as they could. It was difficult for her, but she kept moving forward. The girl could hear the sounds of the evil inhabitants searching for them. She heard that mistress gave orders to find them before midnight and the whole village is looking for them. The boy was very frightened, but the girl said that he should not be afraid and she would protect him. When she saw the cave, the girl decided that the best thing to do was to hide in it. It was very dark and scary in the cave, but there was no time to find a better place. In the cave, they heard a tired man's voice, "Hey, look where you're going." The girl and the boy were very frightened because they did not expect that someone could be in the cave. At this point in the village, the poor grandmother was tied to a pole. She did not know what they were going to do to her and begged to be let go. But the evil, scary mistress prepared her own potion and poured it into Granny's mouth. Then the wicked mistress laughed and left. Meanwhile, in the cave, the girl and her boy discovered a terrifying, unintelligible creature. The man recognized that voice, and with the last of his strength asked, "Jasmine, is that you?" The girl and the boy were shocked. They couldn't understand who it was. The man replied, "It's me, John." The girl and the boy were very surprised that it was John. They couldn't understand why he looked so awful and what was wrong with him. But the man decided to tell what happened to him. He said that one day his mistress called him to her place and gave him a nasty green potion, which she herself had prepared. She said it was a useful potion, and she made the boy drink it. She also said she meant no harm, but wanted to do good.